Before surgery, I chose to stay with my son. What his wife revealed changed everything forever. Tom sat in the unforgiving white light of the hospital waiting room, an unshakable weight settling on his chest. For the past 30 years, he had poured every ounce of sweat and determination into being a father, a mechanic's hands never clean, but his heart always open. Yet, as he watched the sterile environment buzz around him, the whirring machines and the faint scent of antiseptic made the reality of the moment suffocating. Jake, his eldest son, was inside, undergoing major surgery that could very well rewrite the course of his life. Anxiety gnawed at his stomach, the fear of losing his boy tearing through his tough exterior, exposing an unexpected fragility. As Tom wrestled with his thoughts, Sarah, Jake's wife, stepped into his line of vision. The once vibrant spark in her eyes now dimmed, making the air between them feel heavier. Her brows furrowed, and an unspoken burden seemed to encase her like a shroud. They had always shared half-hearted smiles at family gatherings, but now, in this place, a connection stirred. Tom, she began hesitantly, then paused, searching for the right words. It's hard to see him like this. He felt a knot tightening further. It was as if she had exposed a deep fissure that ran beneath the surface of their family. He's strong, he replied, fighting to keep his voice steady, hiding the tremors within. He'll pull through. But Sarah's eyes said otherwise, and she leaned closer, her whispers barely breaking the sterile silence. Jake has been struggling, Tom. He's always felt like he was living in your shadow, under your expectations. Her words poured out, revealing a canvas of emotions Tom had never quite acknowledged. Each revelation was like a punch to the gut, knocking the air from his lungs. He had always believed a good father's legacy was built on grit and hard work. But this was a different battle, one he hadn't prepared for, one that left him questioning if he had unknowingly burdened his son with expectations he never should have shouldered. The hours dragged, and with every tick of the clock, patches of shame washed over him. What had he sacrificed for the sake of pride? Memories of weekends spent under the rusted hood of an old Chevy flickered through his mind, happy moments twisted by the realization that perhaps he had failed to encourage Jake to chart his own course. He had wanted a son who would inherit his legacy, not one who felt defined by it. Suddenly, the lines between pride and guilt blurred in a haze of internal conflict, creating echoes of a childhood comprised of laughter and missed opportunities. Before he could even process the gravity of it all, he heard a voice cut through his thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tom felt the urgency of the moment intensifying. The weight of Sarah's revelations weighed heavily on him, every shared secret igniting his resolve. He stole a glance at Sarah, her face etched with worry. The tension wrapped around them, an invisible thread connecting their collective fears as they waited. He could see now how his perception of fatherhood had set the stage for Jake's struggles. The nurse's footsteps echoed down the hallway, each one a reminder of what lay ahead. As they approached the waiting room, Tom's heart raced. Would he find the courage to confront this new path? Would he finally break the cycle that tied his son to a legacy he longed to escape? The moment of truth loomed closer, a tension that was palpable, leaving him caught between love, regret, and an uncertain future. Tom's heart thudded in his chest as the nurse appeared, a reassuring smile on her face, yet her presence only amplified the uncertainty swirling in his mind. He wasn't ready to hear news that could either shatter or heal the fragile threads of their peculiar family dynamic. Her words, once seemingly mundane, had become a portal into a realm of dread and expectation. "Mr. Harris, we're ready to talk to you about Jake," she said gently, but her tone held a gravitas that rooted him to the spot. He glanced at Sarah, whose eyes reflected a storm of emotions: hope, fear, resignation. The thought of facing the surgeon alone made each step toward that door feel monumental. As the nurse led them into a private consultation room, Tom felt a strange sense of inevitability wash over him. Wherever this conversation was heading, it would unearth truths waiting to be acknowledged, and perhaps, truths he was not ready to accept. The stark white walls surrounded him, suffocating and sterile, mirroring the unspoken tensions dwelling within. Jake is stable, but his recovery will be challenging, the surgeon began, laying out the medical details with a precision that felt distant to Tom. Words like rehabilitation, physical therapy, and adjustments filled the air like a heavy fog. As he listened, all Tom could think about was Jake's face, once bright with ambition. Would this moment alter the trajectory of his dreams, crush his spirit beneath the weight of expectations Tom had unknowingly placed upon him? After the consultation, they stepped back into the waiting room, the sterile environment humming with anxiety and muted conversations. Tom felt the need to communicate something significant, something that could alleviate the unintentional burden he had placed on his son. "Sarah," he said, turning to her, "we need to talk, about Jake, about us, about how I've raised him." Her gaze met his, questioning. For the first time, they were no longer just acquaintances bonded by circumstance. They were allies, navigating the uncertain terrain of family struggles together. "You mentioned Jake feeling overshadowed by you. What can we do about it?" Tom ventured, vulnerability creeping in as he stepped away from the facade of unyielding masculinity he had clung to for so long. "It's about giving him space, supporting him in exploring who he wants to be, not who we want him to be," Sarah replied, her voice steady while her eyes reflected a deeper understanding. "He needs to know that it's okay to tread his own path." Tom mulled over her words. It was as if a light flickered in the darkness of his understanding. He had spent innumerable hours polishing the tools of his trade, fixing up cars, making everything just right. Could it be he had missed the most important repair of all? The repair of his relationship with his son. "I've never asked him what he wants," Tom said, a crack in his voice revealing years of buried intentions. "I thought I was doing what was best." "We all think that," Sarah reassured him. "But it's the dialogue that opens the door to real connection. Start talking to him, ask him about his dreams, his fears, truly listen." The prospect of an authentic conversation with Jake held both exhilarating potential and daunting fear. The thought of inadequacy surfacing while speaking to his son made Tom's stomach turn, but the desire to heal this gap overpowered the weight of his fears. As they sat there, the weight of their joint revelations pressed against Tom's chest, morphing into a fierce determination to set things right. Then it settled, he declared, a new strength beneath the layers of apprehension. "I'll let him know I'm here for him. No expectations. Just love." The moment blossomed, filling the space with purpose. But even within this determination, a shadow lingered. How long had Jake carried this burden while Tom remained blissfully ignorant? The thrill of connection redirected now faced the reality of confrontation, an impending dialogue laced with anxiety over uncharted territory. As Tom prepared for the inevitable discussion with Jake, he felt a pulse of urgency beating within him, a driving need to confront the very core of who he had been as a father. The time had come to face not just Jake, but the choices he had made that formed the foundations of their complicated relationship. And at that moment, as a mix of resolve and trepidation washed over him, he realized he was standing on the brink of transformation. The question now loomed larger than life. Would he be able to navigate the new path ahead, or would old patterns pull him back into the shadows? Tom's resolve solidified as he prepared to face Jake. Each tick of the wall clock seemed to echo in his mind, resonating with the urgency of his mission. He paused in front of Jake's hospital room, the muted beeping of machines a reminder of the fragility that lay within. The urge to retreat grew palpable, doubt clawed at him, whispering that he was unprepared for this, that vulnerability might expose him to rejection. Yet, courage wrestled with fear, and in that struggle, Tom found a flicker of intent. He stepped inside. Jake lay in the hospital bed, a patchwork of tubes and blankets surrounding him, his eyes half open and clouded with sleep or medication. Tom hesitated at the door, taking in the reality of his son's condition. Was it too late to mend what had long been fractured? He forced one foot in front of the other, crossing the threshold into this new and uncertain territory of fatherhood. "Hey, buddy," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. Jake turned his head, the effort visible as he blinked against the bright overhead lights. A faint smile flickered across his lips, which resembled a ghost of the confident young man Tom remembered. "Dad?" Jake's voice was hoarse but filled with a delicate curiosity, beckoning either reassurance or confrontation. "Yeah, it's me," Tom replied, prompting himself to move closer to the bed. He settled onto the edge, acutely aware of the distance between them, a chasm forged from years of unspoken words and unmet expectations. An awkward silence hovered, heavy with unsaid thoughts. Tom took a breath, the weight of his decision bearing down on him. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he started, the words feeling foreign yet necessary. "You mean about my accident?" Jake's question hung in the air, layered with a mix of gravity and sarcasm. Tom winced. "No, not just that. About everything. About how I raised you. I didn't listen to you, did I? I assumed I knew best." Jake averted his gaze, staring at a spot on the blanket as if it held all the answers. "You were doing what you thought was right, Dad. You were always so talented, so driven," Tom continued, leaning in, hope flickering within him. "I thought pushing you would help you find your way. But maybe I pushed too hard without realizing what you wanted." Silence enveloped them again. The machinery around Jake pulsated, a stark reminder of the battle he faced. Tom could feel the enormity of the moment pressing down on him. What Jake needed from him didn't just rely on acknowledging the past, it required dismantling the very framework of their relationship. "I wanted you to be proud of me," Jake finally admitted, his voice raw. "But I just felt invisible." A wave of guilt crashed over Tom, stirring memories of missed baseball games, the silence after harsh criticism, and the weight of his expectations. Here was his son, offering up a confession while confined to a bed, a living testament to both his strength and his struggle. Tom swallowed hard against the lump in his throat. "I'm sorry, Jake. Truly. I wish I could rewind and change how things have played out. But I want you to know I'm here now, ready to listen to you. Just tell me what you want." A flicker of something flashed across Jake's eyes, a spark of cautious hope among the debris of their tumultuous past. "I don't even know what I want right now," he confessed. "It's hard to think beyond the pain." Tom nodded, feeling the sting of his own helplessness. Yet, amid the sorrow, he realized that their shared vulnerability was a potent catalyst for change. "Let us figure it out together," he proposed, vulnerability shifting from fear to solidarity. "One step at a time." The corners of Jake's mouth lifted slightly, a semblance of a smile forming. The connection grew tentatively, like the fragile threads of a spider's web, both delicate and resilient. But even as they began to forge a new understanding, doubts loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. What if this moment was merely a flicker, momentary illumination before darkness descended again? Tom felt the weight of impending decisions hang over him, vast and intimidating. Closing their conversation brought a powerful realization. They both stood at a crossroads, one filled with possibilities yet shadowed by long-standing patterns. The time to confront his lifelong ideals loomed larger than life, as the path toward nurturing real connection laid ahead like an uncharted road. As Tom left the room, he cast one last glance at Jake, a boy on the brink of adulthood and possibility, an intricate mix of hope and trepidation stirring within him. The question echoed back like a distant reminder: could he be the father Jake truly needed, or would old habits pull him back into the shadows? Up ahead lay another conversation, a pivotal moment that would define not just their relationship but also who Tom aspired to be. A voice within propelled him forward. The path of transforming conflict into connection was only starting. As he stepped into the bustling corridor, his heart raced, and with it, the anticipation that loomed in the air. How would he confront the deeper truths hidden under layers of family expectations? Tom's steps echoed down the hospital corridor as he wrestled with the weight of his realization. Each conversation, every moment shared with Jake, had opened up new perspectives, but he still had a mountain to climb. His heart felt heavy with the burden of change, both daunting and electrifying. As he reached the waiting area, he spotted Sarah, Jake's wife, seated quietly, the strain of anticipation etched into her features. "Sarah," he greeted softly, forcing a semblance of warmth into his tone. She looked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of weariness and guarded hope. "Tom," she responded. The distance between them felt palpable, strengthened by unspoken resentments and years spent on different paths. "Have you been here long?" he asked, trying to bridge the gap. "Just a while," she replied, her fingers entwined tightly in her lap. "It's hard to know what to do while we wait." The hospital's clinical sterility surrounding them was a sharp contrast to the heavy emotions swirling within Tom. He had endless questions, not just for Jake but for Sarah as well. "How have you been holding up?" "Better than Jake," she said, her voice firm yet brittle. "He's struggling more than he wants to admit." Her voice trailed off, and in that moment, Tom saw the walls she had built to protect herself. "What?" he pressed, wanting to understand the gravity of Jake's situation from her perspective. She hesitated before speaking, her gaze hardening as if she were preparing for battle. "He feels so alone, Tom. I know he's worried about your relationship or lack of one. And he's scared. He doesn't just need physical healing, he needs emotional support too." The words hit Tom like daggers. He had thought he was on the right path by simply being present, but he now recognized that presence alone was inadequate. "What do you think he needs from me?" Her eyes narrowed, searching his expression as if assessing the depths of his sincerity. "He needs you to be honest with him. To really listen, not just hear. I might be his wife, but there are things only a father can say." Her boldness struck a chord within him. Here was a woman advocating fiercely for her husband, and the urge to emulate that strength ignited new determination within him. "I want to be that father," he declared, realizing how such validation from Sarah could be a turning point. She looked at him, a flicker of surprise passing between them, before nodding slowly. "Then do it. Show up for him not just physically, but mentally. Challenge those patterns you've built over the years." Her words were an invitation into the deeper realm of his character, one he had long neglected. Tom felt like an amateur striving to master a formidable instrument, the pressure to perform weighed on him. How could he confront the deep-seated issues that had plagued their family for so long? The conversation shifted as Sarah shared stories of Jake's favorite memories, his struggles, and the things that brought him joy. Each revelation peeled back layers Tom had missed, and with every word, he felt his own commitment to change solidifying. Yet, beneath this burgeoning resolve lay anxiety. Would he be able to rise to the occasion? "I wish I could just make everything right," Tom admitted, his vulnerability surfacing again. "And you can," Sarah responded firmly, her conviction igniting a spark of courage in him. "But it requires honesty and, most importantly, patience. For yourself and for him." With each passing moment, Tom gained clarity. He felt inspired to wield his regret as a tool for personal growth and to define the father he wanted to become. As their conversation wound down, Tom's resolve grew stronger. This was not merely a chance to reconnect with Jake, it was an opportunity to redefine his identity and become the man he had yet to be. With his heart pounding in his chest, Tom stood. "I need to talk to him again. I need to do this right." As he headed back toward Jake's room, determination coursed through him. A murmur of fear still lingered, but it was accompanied by an exhilarating sense of possibility. Upon reaching the door, a sudden commotion echoed in the corridor, a medley of voices and hurried footsteps that sparked immediate concern within him. The doctors appeared flustered, shadows cast over their faces as they entered Jake's room. "What's happening?" Tom whispered to himself, dread clawing at his gut. As he pushed the door open, a surge of panic gripped him. He was unprepared for what lay ahead, but his commitment to change burned brightly within. Would he stand firm against the tide of chaos, or would fear snatch away the chance he had to be the father Jake truly needed? The next few moments could reshape everything. Tom stepped into the room and froze. The atmosphere felt electric, charged with fear and uncertainty. Jake lay in the hospital bed, an island of stillness surrounded by frenetic energy. Doctors and nurses moved with urgent precision, their conversations hushed but fervent. This was no longer just a father-son conversation, this was a fight against the void that loomed too close for comfort. He wanted to call out to Jake, to reassure him he was there, but the words stuck in his throat. The earlier resolve he had felt pulsated within him, but now it warred against an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. What could he possibly offer in a moment like this? Was he ready to face not only his son but also the gravity of his missteps as a father? Suddenly, one of the doctors turned to Tom, their eyes searching. "Are you family?" "Yes," Tom replied, forcing himself to breathe steadily. "I'm his father." The doctor nodded, a mixture of urgency and understanding in his gaze. "We need to move quickly. Jake is facing some complications. You can stay, but I need you to remain calm. Can you do that?" A torrent of emotions flooded Tom's mind, fear, regret, and an unfamiliar resolve. "I can." With that affirmation, a small flicker of courage ignited within him. He watched as the medical team worked, their movements fluid and purposeful. Amidst the chaos, he sought out Jake's face. The pallor of his skin contrasted against the stark white linens, but there was still a glimmer of energy, the essence of who Jake was, and it called to Tom. This was his son, a boy he had failed to understand, and yet here he was, on the edge of something monumental. He piqued memories of Jake's laughter, the moments of silence when they both felt misunderstood, and the lifetime of regrets that built walls between them. This made it painfully clear, time was fleeting, and resurfacing those connections was urgent. The doctor turned to him again, giving brief instructions about what to expect. Tom listened intently, though his mind was more occupied with what he would say when the madness slowed. Would Jake forgive him? Would he even want to? The silence stretched heavier than before, bound together by both fear and hope. When the doctors finally stepped back, Tom stepped forward toward Jake. The sound of the heart monitor ticked steadily, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, his throat tight. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Jake's eyes fluttered as he struggled to surface from whatever cloud had engulfed him. "Dad," he murmured, barely above a whisper. Hearing his son's voice ignited something fierce within Tom. He felt the weight of their past but also the possibility of a new beginning. "I know that I haven't always been there for you, Jake. I've made mistakes, and I don't want to make any more." In that moment, Tom saw a flicker of understanding in Jake's expression. The immediate tension in the room shifted ever so slightly, opening a space for connection. "Just, don't go," Jake murmured, his voice fragile. "I'm not going anywhere," Tom promised, and with those words, he realized he was not just trying to comfort Jake but affirming something crucial within himself. He had lived in shadows long enough, letting regret dictate his actions. But now, staring at his son, he felt the enormity of the choice in front of him, to confront the past and fight for the future. Moments stretched thin as they locked eyes, a silent agreement passing between them, an acknowledgement of the hurt, the distance, and now, this fragile connection they were beginning to form. And with each heartbeat echoed on the monitor, Tom tightened his resolve. The stakes had never been higher. He couldn't just be a spectator anymore. He had to embrace this moment, not just as a father but as a man forged by his failures and his unwillingness to let regret define him. Yet just as he found certainty, the chaos erupted around them again, the alarms ringing in acute urgency. A nurse rushed in, frantic, and Tom's heart raced. How could everything so quickly shift from hope to despair? He grasped Jake's hand tighter, unwilling to let go. How could he navigate this storm and emerge not just as a father but as the anchor his son needed? The critical moment to define his journey as a man and a father was upon him, and uncertainty loomed larger than ever. In the dim light of the hospital room, a question crystallized in his mind. Was he truly ready to face not just the past, but everything that lay ahead, in the darkest of moments? The threshold of transformation had opened. It was a matter of finding the courage to step through. The next few moments could change everything once more. The panic in the air thickened like fog rolling in from the coast. Tom's grip tightened around Jake's hand, the pulse of his son's lifeline grounding him amidst the confusion. The alarm screamed, a discordant symphony of urgency, motivating Tom to draw deeper from his reservoir of determination. His role was shifting, morphing from a passive bystander to an active participant in Jake's fight. "Stay with me," Jake murmured again, his eyes searching for something reassurance, perhaps. Tom's heart surged as he met that gaze, a well of emotions mingling with the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beeping of machines. He nodded, although the knot in his throat made affirmations difficult. "I'm right here. You're not alone, Jake." The words fell from his lips softly but were laced with a fierce promise to himself their conversation would forge a new foundation, one he had failed to build for years. The energy shifted from one of despair to a burgeoning hope, thoughts colliding in Tom's mind like the machines that whirred around them. As the medical team hurried, Tom focused on Jake, trying to read the maze of emotion on his son's face. In those fleeting seconds of eye contact, he deciphered a cocktail of confusion, fear, and perhaps, forgiveness. He realized this was more than just physical recovery, it was a chance to heal the relationship that had been fraught with misunderstandings. "Jake," he said, a rush of urgency rising as he attempted to navigate their past grievances. "I can't go back and undo what I did, not being there when you needed me, not understanding you. But I want to fight for us now. I promise to be here, every step of the way." He sensed the shift within Jake. Something in his son's expression relaxed, a subtle acknowledgement, as if the weight of their tumultuous history started to lift, even if just for a moment. Tom could almost hear the walls they had built cracking, there was potential for reconstruction. Then the doctor re-entered, pulling Tom back into the present with her commanding presence. "We'll be starting soon. You might want to prepare yourself for what's coming." Her voice was steady but expressed a compassionate gravity. "Is there anything you want to say to him?" Time briefly froze, allowing Tom a fleeting glimpse of what truly mattered. "Jake," he started, his voice trembling with intensity. "You're going to fight. We're going to fight together. You're more than you know. I see your strength. I always have." The words tumbled out, each syllable intentional as he laid bare his greatest fear, losing this moment. The space between them shimmered with unspoken truths, briskly brushing away the years of silence. But doubt still lurked, clawing at the edges. What if this wasn't enough? What if Jake didn't see the potential for redemption? Then, just as suddenly as the chaos had surged, a quiet enveloped the room, less about the alarms and more of an internal stillness encapsulating Tom. He had been spiraling around the inadequacies of his role, and yet, here they stood, somehow poised on the brink of something transformative. Jake's eyes softened, perhaps touched by his father's candor. "Just don't leave," he whispered, more confident this time. "I promise," Tom responded, feeling the weight of that word carve a new resolve in him. It was a promise not just to Jake but to himself. He would not waver, not now when they were on the precipice of change. But before he could bask in the small victory of that verbal agreement, a chilling sound electrified the atmosphere. The overhead speaker crackled ominously. "Dr. Myers to Orr. Dr. Myers to Orr." Reality came roaring back, and the urgency transformed the room once again. They were running out of time. The doctor gently urged Tom back, preparing to take Jake into surgery. "You'll need to wait here. We'll do everything we can." Tom's heart sank, but he gripped Jake's hand tighter, needing to bridge the distance even as he was forced away. "I'll be right here, buddy. Keep fighting." As Jake was wheeled away, a new weight settled on Tom's chest. The moment of truth was compounded with the fear of what would come next. Could he be the father Jake needed, not just in this moment but for the rest of their lives? This surgery would open a door to survival or despair. Either way, Tom knew that the aftermath lay solely in his actions. The ticking clock echoed ominously, a metronome of uncertainty, yet resolve surged anew within him. Could this experience, this raw, painful moment, serve as the catalyst for true change? The impending surgery felt like an initiation, a crucible to test his commitment to breaking the cycle of regret. With every heartbeat that lapsed, Tom prepared himself for the aftermath, a determination swelling in his chest. However, deep within, a haunting question lingered. What would he discover about himself when faced with the outcome? Tom braced himself, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, knowing the real surgery, the one that might reshape their relationship, had already begun. Tom's heart drummed a visceral rhythm against the confines of his chest, each beat punctuated by the harsh beeping of the machine that echoed in the sterile waiting room. The corridor felt infinite, stretching on like the uncertainty of the path ahead. Every second spent in this liminal space felt interminable, gray against the backdrop of the vibrant emotions swirling in his mind. Doubt clawed at the edges, whispering insidious questions. Was the promise he made to Jake strong enough? Would his intent translate to action when the time came? As the minutes drifted, Tom clenched his fists, the coolness of metal against his skin a grounding sensation amid the turmoil. The nurse had assured him that surgery was routine, but the very definition of routine was smeared by the chaos of their circumstance. What did he really know about fighting? The overwhelming urge to be there for Jake had ignited a flicker of determination within him, but could he sustain it? In this throbbing limbo, Tom found his thoughts spiraling toward the past. The moments of absence weighed upon him, each memory a stark reminder of what he had chosen over being present. The missed birthdays, the conversations left unsaid, had all coalesced into a debilitating reminder of his failures as a father. Would he ever reclaim their bond? He closed his eyes, pushing the memories of his past failings away like clouds on a stormy day. Instead, he tried to envision a future where Jake was recovering, where they could rebuild the relationship that had been eroded over time. But what did rebuilding even look like? Was it merely finding the right words to articulate his remorse, or was it deeper a conscious effort to change his approach and understanding of Jake? The hospital's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, drawing him back to the present. Unbidden, images of Jake flooded his mind, the bright smile of his youth, the echoing laughter during their camping trips, the candid discussions that had shaped him into the man he was becoming. That was the Jake Tom wanted to fight for, a spirited, unbroken young man filled with potential. Suddenly, the waiting room doors swung open, and a petite figure emerged from behind them. It was Lisa, Jake's fiancée, her expression a swirling storm of anxiety interlaced with steely determination. Tom's instinct urged him to comfort her, yet his heart thudded against the weight of guilt. Here was another relationship he had let drift, one built on missed opportunities for connection. Tom, she spoke, her voice a mixture of urgency and hope. I need to talk to you. He nodded, desperately wanting to bridge the gap that had widened between them over the years. What is it? There's something you need to know about Jake, something that he hasn't told you, something we should both understand moving forward. Tom's pulse quickened. When faced with the unknown, all previous resolutions threatened to unravel. What are you saying? That night it wasn't just an accident, Dad. He was struggling with a lot more than we realized. Lisa's eyes glinted with unshed tears, igniting a flicker of the anger hidden inside Tom. Anger towards himself for being blind, anger at the circumstances, and anger at the rapidly unfolding reality. Struggling? Tom echoed, grappling with the implications. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't I see it? The flicker of determination that had momentarily ignited began to dim. Had his absence all those years rendered Jake incapable of reaching out for help? Because he thought he had to be strong for you, Lisa replied, her voice unwavering. But strength doesn't always mean keeping things bottled up. Sometimes, it means asking for help. The words resonated in Tom, each syllable a revelation, casting light upon the shadows of their fragmented relationship. She was right. Their understanding of strength had become tainted, blurred by traditional notions, leaving them both floundering without a safety net of openness. Tom took a deep, shaky breath, the air a heady mix of fear and a newfound clarity. The moment of realization hit him like a cold splash of water. Then we have to change that, he asserted, his voice steady. He could no longer afford to be the passive observer of his son's journey. It was time to confront his own vulnerabilities, to unravel the false notions around strength and allow Jake to see that they could face their battles together. As Lisa nodded, a shared resolve steadied them amidst the unsettling reality of surgery and uncertainty. Tom felt a surge of commitment. The fight for Jake would not end at the operating room doors. It would extend far beyond, demanding every ounce of his energy, every fragmented piece of himself. But another daunting question pressed against his thoughts. What kind of father would he need to become to truly stand beside Jake in the unfolding truth? The overhead speaker crackled to life again, snapping Tom out of his reverie, pulling him closer toward the inevitable confrontation looming ahead. This was not just about Jake's recovery, it was about a reclamation of their relationship. And as the clock continued its relentless ticking, the time would come where he had to not only learn to express his vulnerabilities but also confront the reasons that had kept them estranged for far too long. This journey was about to spiral into territories he hadn't dared explore before. Could he face it? Would he understand the gravity of his new role as a father, one woven with honesty? Just then, the doctor emerged from the shadows, and Tom braced himself. The moment of truth was coming, the gravity of it palpable, as he readied himself for whatever lay ahead. Tom's eyes fixed on the doctor as he stepped into the waiting area, each stride resonating with a sense of inevitable gravity. The gentle rise and fall of the physician's jacket echoed Tom's racing pulse, a reminder that the limit between hope and despair was dangerously thin. He straightened, drawing a deep breath, mentally prepping himself for the barrage of information that was about to unfold. "Mr. McAllister," the doctor began, his tone steady yet laced with the weight of the moment, "Jake is stable, and the surgery has been successful." Relief surged through Tom, his shoulders relaxing slightly as he registered each word, but beneath that surface lay an unsettling current. What lay ahead? Would Jake emerge from this experience transformed, the way Tom hoped? Or, given the revelations from Lisa, would it be a metamorphosis born from hidden struggles far deeper than physical scars? But, the doctor continued, and the sound of that single word clawed at Tom's heart like a rusted nail. "There are underlying concerns we need to address regarding Jake's mental health. We found evidence of stress-related issues and some indications of self-harming behavior." A chill ran through Tom, as if someone had doused him with cold water. The doctor's words echoed in his mind, each syllable spelling out the fragility of the son he realized he barely knew. Would he ever have grasped what Jake was enduring without Lisa's insight? "What can we do?" The question tumbled out before he could think about it, shot through with urgency. "We'll collaborate with a psychologist to ensure that Jake receives the support he needs. It's critical that he feels safe to express himself. And your role will be equally important in this healing process." Tom nodded, instinctively understanding that this was not just about Jake anymore, it was a call to action for him as well. The weight of his past hung heavily over him, whispering that he could not simply rely on medical professionals to bridge the gap. It was time to face the raw and disturbing truth of his own deficiencies. As Tom stood by the window, the sterile landscape outside blurred into insignificance. His own internal chaos mirrored the shifting clouds, a tumultuous reflection of the storm brewing within. Could he become the father Jake needed, the father who would remain steady while his son navigated the turbulent waters of mental health? Questions spiraled, each one a revelation about what he had avoided for so long. Returning to Lisa, he sensed a deeper connection forging between them, not only as family through Jake but as allies in a fight for understanding. "We need to do this together," he said, his voice firm. "I can't afford any more distance between us." Lisa offered a faint smile, one mingled with the shadows of uncertainty. "You won't be alone, Tom." As they stood shoulder to shoulder, the weight of their shared resolve began to solidify something new, a partnership formed out of vulnerability. It was as if they were carving a new path, one that demanded authenticity over tradition, one where asking for help was the real strength they would cultivate together. Tom was aware that the journey ahead would not be linear. Each session with therapists would likely unearth buried emotions that could either bridge their estrangement or threaten to tear them further apart. He could not ignore that possibility. He wouldn't allow fear of confronting their collective pain to slow him down. What would it require to break the cycle of silence? His mind raced with strategies to foster open conversations and create a safe space where Jake could express himself without judgment. Could he be that transformative element in his son's life? The very thought ignited a fierce determination within him. But moments later, another wave of uncertainty washed over Tom as he recalled the disconnect festering between him and Jake. The realization hit hard: they had both been left carrying unspoken burdens for far too long. What would it take for Jake to confide in him freely? And could he trust himself to handle the revelations that might come? As the clock ticked on, Tom knew he no longer had the luxury of time or distance. The moment to face the uncomfortable truths about their relationship was now. But would he be ready for what Jake had to say? The possibility of painful revelations loomed on the horizon. With a deep breath, he steeled himself for the conversations that lay ahead. They needed honesty, courage, and above all, he had to learn how to listen. "It starts with us," he murmured, the commitment solidifying in his heart like unyielding steel. Tom stood back as the door to Jake's room beckoned, visualizing the way forward that he must now embrace. The time had come to face all that lay beneath the surface, the obstacles, the pain, and the bond they sought to reclaim. Uncertainty draped over him like a thick fog as he pushed the door open. Would he find the strength to confront what had been left unsaid? The most demanding battle was about to commence, and for the first time in years, Tom stepped into a place where he was ready to fight not just for Jake, but also for himself. Stepping into Jake's room, a mix of antiseptic and lingering anxiety filled the air. Tom's gaze fell upon his son, pale and vulnerable under the harsh hospital lights, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. The machines beeped rhythmically, a constant reminder of life, but also an echo of all the times he had stood by without truly being present. "Hey, Jake." The address felt foreign, a clumsy bridge spanning years of missed connections. Tom pulled a chair closer, the sound of its legs scraping against the tiled floor sharpening the silence that pooled around them. Jake stirred slightly, his eyes fluttering open, revealing a blend of confusion and recognition. "Dad?" The single word hesitated in the air, a thread connecting two lives that had drifted apart. The fear clawed at Tom's throat, raw and insistent. "How are you feeling?" It was a simple enough question, but he recognized that it carried the weight of all his inadequacies. Every moment he had failed to ask in the past resided in those 4 words. "Okay, I guess." Jake's voice was fragile, betraying a deeper emotional undercurrent. Could he sense the tension between them, the unspoken struggles tied to their history? In that moment, Tom understood that healing wasn't just about addressing Jake's injuries. It required unspooling the threads of their relationship, examining the knots that had formed over the years. I want to talk about things. I want to understand how you're feeling." Jake's gaze shifted to the ceiling, avoiding Tom's eyes. The rejection stung, but Tom remained resolute. He didn't flinch. "I know I haven't been there, Jake. But I want to be now." Silence enveloped them, a thick curtain that both suffocated and protected. Tom's mind raced, searching for a way to breach this emotional barrier. There was a need for vulnerability, a necessity to model the openness he hoped to cultivate in his son. "I'm scared too," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Finally, Jake turned his head, and the sadness that pooled in his eyes was palpable. "You don't get it. I've felt alone for a long time. Like nobody really sees me." Each word was a dagger, cutting into the layers of denial Tom had wrapped around him for years. And then it clicked, the revelation that had been bubbling at the surface. How often had he overlooked Jake's struggles in his efforts to maintain a facade of control, of authority? "I'm sorry," Tom managed, feeling the tears of regret threaten to spill. "I wish I had seen you. I want you to know you're not alone anymore." Jake's face shifted, an array of emotions flickering across his features: pain, skepticism, and a hint of something vulnerability. "Is it really that simple? Just saying that?" Tom's heart raced. This was the moment of reckoning. "No, it's not simple," he replied, filling his voice with conviction. "It's just the first step. We'll have to work, hurt, and maybe even fight to get there. But I promise to try. To listen. To understand." The barriers were still present, a wall fortified by a history of silence and neglect, but now cracks began to form. "What if I can't? What if I'm not strong enough?" Jake's voice trembled, revealing fears that resonated deep within Tom's own soul, a reflection of his past. "Strength isn't about never falling down, it's about getting back up, together. I want to help us both find that strength." Tom's words were laced with the truth he had stumbled towards. Healing wasn't just for Jake, it was his own path forward, a plug-in into the existence he had long denied. Yet in this clarity, a nagging fear took root. What if their vulnerabilities were too deep to mend, too intertwined with years of hurt? The moment lingered, a delicate balance hung in the air, uncertain, fragile, and hopeful. As they sat in the brutal quiet of the hospital room, Tom understood he was right at the precipice of change. But the weight of what lay ahead still pressed heavily upon him. "Can you give me a chance?" he asked, his voice steady yet edged with tension. "Can we start to figure this out together?" The door creaked open, and Lisa stepped in. A fixture of support just as Tom needed. She glanced at him, then at Jake, sensing the fragile shift in the atmosphere. Tom's heart raced. How much could they share? Would she grasp the gravity of this moment? As the conversation hung suspended, he felt a knot of determination tightening within him. Would they find the courage to unearth the layers of pain and rebuild those connections? Or would fear swallow them whole, locking them into patterns that had haunted their family for too long? The journey was just beginning, laden with the promise of renewal, but would it be enough? Time passed slowly for Tom as he remained tethered to the chair beside Jake's hospital bed, the rhythmic beeping of machines like a countdown clock marking the critical journey ahead. Every glance at Jake's still form rekindled a mix of trepidation and unyielding resolve. They weren't just bound by blood, they were caught up in a struggle for understanding, connection, and ultimately, healing. "Jake," Tom began again, his voice steadier than before. "I know I haven't been the father you needed. I want to change that. I've spent too long living in my own head, and I need to be a part of your life in a real way." Jake's eyes began to clear, capturing Tom's conviction. "Dad, are you really serious?" The skepticism was evident in his tone, but so was a hint of curiosity, of vulnerability. "I am," Tom affirmed, a warmth filling the space between them like sunlight breaking through a heavy cloud. "I understand now that being a good father doesn't just mean providing or having expectations. It means truly listening to who you are and what you need." "I've always felt like I was in this shadow," Jake admitted quietly, his voice barely meeting Tom's ears. "Like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough." "That's not how I want you to feel anymore," Tom articulated, leaning forward, earnestness radiating from him. "You're your own person, Jake. Your dreams, your desires, they matter. And I want to learn who you are, not just who I thought you should be." A flicker of something shifted within Jake's eyes, a glimmer of hope battling with long-held resentment. "It's hard to trust that you'll really be there this time." "I completely understand. It'll take time," Tom responded, knowing the road would be arduous. "But I'm committed to being patient, to working through this together. I won't push you to be the son I wanted, but rather support you in becoming the man you want to be." Tears welled in Jake's eyes. "You know that's all I ever wanted." Tom took a deep breath, the weight of unspoken promises starting to lift. "Then let us start right here, right now. No more hiding, just honesty. Tell me about your dreams, your fears, everything." As if against the tide of years of silence, Jake began to share snippets of himself, the passions he had been too tentative to pursue, the aspirations stifled by perceived expectations, and the burdens he quietly bore while trying to navigate adulthood. Each word breathed life into their stagnant relationship, forging a bond of trust that felt tangible. Tom soaked in every moment, the raw honesty crackled in the air like electricity, invigorating him but also laying him bare. He realized it wasn't merely Jake who needed to change, he needed to redefine what it meant to be a father. The conversation intensified, extending with each truth shared. "I want to go into graphic design," Jake admitted shyly, "but I know that you always wanted me to take over the shop." The admission struck Tom like a bolt of lightning. "You can go into graphic design and still be my son," he vowed, heart-rending clarity washing over him. "I shouldn't have put that pressure on you. I see now that it stifled you, and I regret it. Your path is yours to create." And just like that, barriers crumbled, vulnerability leading to shared connection. The gravity of Tom's past mistakes became the scaffolding for their renewal. Jake smiled faintly, signaling a shift, the construction of a bridge between them. Before long, the nurse entered again, breaking the sacred pause shared between father and son. "Jake, it's time for you to rest," she said kindly, but Tom felt a flicker of anxiety. "Can we keep talking?" Jake asked, the slight tremor in his voice underscoring the insecurity of their new bond. "We can pick this up again soon," Tom promised, a firm commitment grounding his resolve. "And I'll be right here waiting. Remember, you're not alone in any of this." After the nurse left them alone again, Jake reached for Tom's hand, their fingers intertwining, bridging years of disconnection. A newfound solidarity began to blossom between them, forged in the crucible of honesty and a shared desire for healing. The room felt saturated with warmth, almost as if it pulsed with the promise of what could be. As the hours passed, Tom remained steadfast, monitoring Jake as he drifted into a deeper slumber, the lines of worry slowly melting from his face. In this moment of stillness, Tom realized that he was finally stepping into his role not as an expectation-laden figure but as a father willing to grow beside his son. Leaving the room for a moment to collect himself, Tom moved to the waiting area, where Lisa still lingered, a reassuring presence. They exchanged knowing glances, a silent recognition of how far they had both come in such a short time. "How did it go?" she asked, her genuine interest punctuating the distance they transposed. "It was transformative," Tom replied, his heart swelling with newfound confidence. "We're on the right path. It feels like a beginning, not an end." Lisa smiled, her expression both proud and relieved. "That's amazing. You both deserve this chance." "I know there will be challenges ahead," he admitted, contemplating the layers still to unravel. "But I'm ready for it. I finally understand that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness." As Tom prepared to re-enter Jake's room once more, he felt a sense of solidity within himself. He was ready to not only support his son but also to embrace this journey with open arms, echoing the support he had long denied himself. Each step he took felt purposeful, each thought a vow to cultivate the connection he had so tragically overlooked. The hallways of the hospital whispered of hope, and Tom finally knew this was only the beginning not just for Jake, but for himself as well. From that moment on, he would no longer merely be a parent who observes but a father who participates, appreciates, and above all, listens. In the aftermath of surgery, coming to grips with their shared vulnerabilities, both Tom and Jake had taken the first steps toward forging a legacy not defined by unspoken expectations but by understanding, support, and unconditional love, a powerful catalyst for the healing they both desperately needed. This transformation would ripple through their lives, each conversation forming a thread in the tapestry of their renewed relationship. It was a commitment, one born from pain and growth, propelling them both toward a shared future of authenticity and connection. It was time for them to rebuild, to rediscover the love that had always been there but ensnared under layers of misunderstanding. Tom was ready. He had finally discovered what being a father truly entailed, a mutual journey of discovery and trust, a pathway toward growth blooming from the ashes of regret. And with that, Tom felt a solid confidence burgeoning within him. Together, they would achieve not just survival, but a thriving bond rooted in authentic connection, honesty, and a fierce love that would carry them beyond any surgical recovery, elevating both their spirits as they thrived into the possibilities ahead. Now more than ever, the invitation for others to choose empathy, choose connection, rang loudly in his heart, forever echoing their shared commitment to conquer the shadows of the past into new beginnings. As Tom watched Jake breathe steadily, filled with hope, he finally understood what it meant to achieve peace within themselves. It was a journey that was always meant to unfold together. Thank you for staying with this raw and heartfelt story. Now, if you're moved by these transformative journeys, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.